Anthony Joshua has already made the agreed weight for the Jake Paul fight. The agreed weight was 245 pounds. Anthony Joshua is coming in under that right now. So, according to Anthony Joshua, right now he's walking around at a little bit less than 245 pounds. He's already made the agreed weight. The weight was never going to be a problem for AJ. AJ's fought multiple times at below 245. In fact, the lowest he's fought at was 237, which was for the Andy Ruiz rematch. But he's had multiple fights where he's come in less than 245, so the weight was never going to be a problem. There was a small subset of people that were theorizing that Jake Paul put the 245-pound limit in place because he wanted to weight drain and weaken Anthony Joshua. Jake Paul is going to be getting the best Anthony Joshua. I don't think Anthony Joshua's weight was ever going to matter for this fight. I think the biggest factor in how long this fight goes is going to be Jake Paul's weight. Now look, the heaviest Jake Paul has ever come in for a fight was 227 for the Mike Tyson fight. And as big of a clown show as that was, if you go back and rewatch it, that was the slowest and most lethargic he's ever looked in the ring. He's never been able to move very well in the ring. He's always been very flat-footed. But that fight in particular, he looked a lot slower and a lot more lethargic than he has in previous fights. I think in his mind, 220 would be the sweet spot to still have the power to be dangerous, but still be able to move relatively well. And as much as I disagree with that, I think that that is his logic for wanting to come in like 215 to 220. Although if he thinks that he's going to be able to stand and trade with AJ, I think it's going to be a very short fight. I made a video about this a few weeks ago saying that Jake Paul is not even remotely capable of hurting Anthony Joshua, no matter what weight he comes in at. So if his plan is to come in at 215 to 220 so he can be able to stand there and trade with AJ and be dangerous, it's going to be a very short fight. I mentioned this in my other video, but Jake Paul couldn't even put down Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And there was a lot of people in the comments saying, well, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has never been put down by anyone. While that is true, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.'s best years were at middleweight and super middleweight, 160 to 168. He has never been put down by mostly middleweights. If you're Jake Paul weighed 200 pounds in that fight. I think he came in at 199. And you couldn't put down or even remotely hurt a career middleweight or super middleweight. That was my point. Regardless of how good Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.'s chin was at middleweight and super middleweight, he was a middleweight and super middleweight, and Jake Paul couldn't even remotely hurt him or put him down. So yeah, nobody's ever put Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. down. I understand that. But you have to understand, he's a career 160, 168er, and Jake Paul couldn't put him down. So what do you think he's going to do to Anthony Joshua come fight night when Anthony Joshua shows up at 245 pounds? I think it would be in Jake Paul's best interest to come in as light as possible, to be as mobile as possible. I think coming in as light as possible will increase his odds of surviving more than 2 minutes.